100, about day 101. But it happened to be Thanksgiving weekend. My brother thought he was doing my mother a favor and thought I was being really nasty to make her stay in the rehab unit over Thanksgiving. So he decided on day 97 to take her home to his house. Well, it turned out to be a disaster, not only for me, because it cost me $10,000, $9,900 at $3,300 a month that I had to start over the count of 100 days. But my brother, who's a cook and should have been cooking on Thanksgiving, ended up with a mother at home who ended up with a flu. And he wasn't able to work. She was sick. It upset his family life. It upset his work life. And it's upset my pocketbook. And so you just never really know unless you have good communication and are aware of what's going on. Then, of course, this whole issue with diet and exercise and what they're able to eat and not eat. We've had maids, or if you want to, housekeepers in the units, whether they be the rehab or the assisted living, who throw away cups on the sink which have false teeth in them, $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 expensive teeth in them are thrown in the trash, thinking, not knowing that there's something in the cups or that they're valuable like that, or throwing away glasses, eyeglasses, and so on. So anyway, elder care advocates also need to be up on things like legal income qualifications to qualify for legal aid schemes, for qualifying for veterans benefits. Now, in the case of my mother, my dad was a veteran. She should have qualified for spousal veterans benefits, but she earned something like $200 over the legal amount of financial income she could have to get any veterans benefits from my dad. I also know other people who were expecting veterans benefits, but because their now deceased spouse had been involved in the Korean, we called it the Korean War in the 1950s, guess what? It wasn't officially declared a war. It was called a conflict. And because of that, there are people for a certain number of years in the 1950s who happened to be in Korea, which was a horrendous situation for them as soldiers, who are not covered under veterans benefits. So hearing this, they're shocked, and who'd have thunk it, as we might say. So there are a lot of things like this that you have to watch out for. Now, things to prepare and that we can prepare ahead of time are issues like, of course, funeral, if you're going to have one, whether you're going to do cremation or burial, will there be a headstone, any special service related songs or service messages or ministers or rabbis or any of those kinds of situations that the patient wants laid out ahead of time can be done ahead of time. And in fact, it's better done when they're well and not facing imminent death, because then it gets a lot more awkward to talk about it. There's also the whole thing about titling your assets, be they homes or jewelry or your art collection or any kind of inheritance. There's all kinds of taxes, estate taxes and gifting that you're allowed or disallowed from in those regards. There's the whole thing of the living trust, which is where instead of putting things in your will to give to family members or friends or organizations you support, if you put your assets into a living trust, which is a legal entity, you don't have to go through probate. Now, if you're dead or your patient is dead, they probably don't care. But whoever's left handling the estate will find it so much easier to just have access to the funds or whatever's left from the patient or that elder person to be able to handle their debts and then distribute the inheritance as they wanted. Otherwise, you have to leave it to the state to go through probate, and a judge will determine who gets what assets, and that's not always in everyone's best interest. Other thing I learned about a will is that you can lay out who you want to have inherit what in your estate, but if you have written in beneficiaries, either in your insurance policy, life insurance, or your retirement account, those beneficiaries override the will. And you might have forgotten that you actually gave your now ex-spouse or someone who might even now be deceased in your lineage, or some institution you used to support 50 years ago is still on your insurance policy or your retirement account as a beneficiary, that you probably would have wished to update to someone or something else. Too late, even if you've got it in your will. So there's so many things to think about. Durable power of attorney. Did you know that durable power of attorney dies with the patient? So, you need to handle things ahead of time as much as possible, because even, unless you're the executor of the estate and you've got a living will, it's going to be thrown over to the judge. And then, of course, there's issues like guardianship of children, be they younger children, minors, or youngsters or offspring that have mental health problems and so on. Or even if you simply get incapacitated, when you're not elderly, what happens then? Now, just as we sort of roll towards wrapping up, one of the things, or a couple of things you can do to support your elders, be they people you professionally are involved with or family members. Of course, companionship is a very big thing. As much as possible, try to visit with them, get together, try to help them be stimulated both in body and mind, take them out on walks or wheel them out in that unrestrained wheelchair so they can sit outside for a while. Maybe send cards, letters, flowers, sweets, call them on the phone if they can still hear on the phone. And now there are a lot of phones that are tailored towards elderly people, just to keep them, their mind and their heart alive and knowing they're cared about. There's all kinds of gifts we can also think to send to our elders. Things that relate to keepsakes, whether they be photo albums or photo calendars, photo blankets and photo puzzles. Maybe it's things to entertain them, whether it's, jumbo-sized playing cards or puzzles, or, even just having something to play music on, or TV. How about things to reduce anxiety and increase a sense of calm and relaxation? Maybe it's one of these sound machines that will help them fall asleep to the sound of an ocean or birds tweeting or something like that. Or even, I know my niece sent my mother, her grandmother, an aromatherapy infuser so that she could have healing smells from aromatherapy sort of spit out into the room to calm her down and relax her. Also, different types of clothing and footwear, from shawls to non-slip slippers, or the kind of compression socks or lap blankets that make somebody feel comfortable and snug and cozy or keep the chill off. There's also daily life enhancers, everything from gift certificates and curlers and a mirror. Maybe it's a gift certificate to have their nails done or their hair done, a caddy to put on the back of their walker or their wheelchair, and even a supply of stamps and greeting cards, that kind of thing. And that's what I've often kept my mother plied with. And now I write the cards for her, but it makes her feel like she can still express her care for others through this. Obviously, there's technology, things like keyboards and digital photo frames and phones and TVs and tablets and music gadgets, but they have to be simple with large features so that they can manipulate them. And finally, obviously, mobility-related things, whether it's actually getting them rides on Uber or something called Go Grandparents, which is an on-demand ride service that doesn't require smartphones and computers. And otherwise, of course, fancy canes, wheelchairs, walkers on wheels, and so on. Ultimately, though, just to wrap up here now, people want to age in place if they can, but at a minimum, they want to age and eventually pass on with few regrets, with family harmony, with the exchange of good and happy memories as they're spending their last days, with the restoration of relationships around them, not divisions, with few loose ends, and then ultimately with dignity and feeling honored that they have had a chance to share their life with you. So lots of things to think about, lots of things you can plan for ahead of time. And I want to thank you for being here with me today on Living Legacy Leadership. Thanks for listening to the show, and hope you gained some new insights, tools, or strategies. So please look us up on the SOB Radio Network and on my business website, Game Changer Thinking. And I'll remind you that the life you live is the legacy you leave. Bye-bye now.